It is a story that is 3 months in the making for us, 8 months in the making for the whistleblower I'll introduce you to momentarily. The headline, Whistleblower, State Equity Program became a fund for personal enrichment. The story is a tangled web of self-dealing that has now caught the attention of both the State Department of Commerce and the Office of Attorney General Nick Brown. So this report centers around a program in Washington state that you might not have heard of. It was one of the post-George Floyd race and social justice programs that was launched in Washington state, one of many, but it's a big one. It's called the Community Reinvestment Fund, and it's administered through the Washington State Department of Commerce. It was passed by the Democrat-led legislature in 2022. It had an initial $200 million investment. It also, this past session, despite us having like a $15 billion budget shortfall, got an additional $50 million investment, and this is what it said it was for. The Community Reinvestment Program is a community-designed initiative to uplift communities disproportionately harmed by the war on drugs. The goal is to create lasting economic benefits, build wealth, and ensure everyone has a fair chance at success. Well, that sounds nice. To ensure that everyone has a fair chance at success. But of course, the program is deliberately designed to help people based on skin pigmentation, to help them get things like home loans, business loans, even pay off credit card debt, help them re-enter into community after a period of incarceration. But when we read that line that says that the program, again, funded with taxpayer money, is designed to build wealth and ensure everyone has a fair chance at success, that seems to be where the program has failed. So our whistleblower is a woman named Corey Orvold, and Corey was introduced to this program as a managing real estate broker. She was helping her clients buy homes, and if her clients qualified for some of these community reinvestment program funds, she was supposed to help them apply and basically direct them towards some of the local nonprofits that were contracted with the state to administer these funds. And this really could be a huge deal to so many people in the community, especially people of color who qualified, who were at the right income bracket. It could have meant hundreds of thousands of dollars for them toward, in this case, the purchase of a home. And so Corey, starts off liking the program, thinking that the program is a good idea. And then she starts to get suspicious. About 10 months ago, she starts to realize that there are people who are tasked with administering the program in some of these BIPOC nonprofits across the state who are giving themselves money for homes, who are giving themselves money to cancel out personal credit card debt, who are sending potential home buyers to friends or board members who run real estate brokerages. And so Corey decided, after months of trying internally to blow the whistle over how this program was being administered, after trying to get a response from the Department of Commerce, from the Attorney General's office, that she'd had enough and she was going to speak to us.
That's really what's so disgusting about this, is this money should have been in community hands. Mm-hmm. The more that I just started to really look at all this, and I said, I can't be a part of this. Yeah, I've never, ever asked for any funds and never wanted them. And I didn't want any of this. I wanted to help community. And, in trying to protect the Black community, February 10th was my first email asking what the hell is going on. And I've been shut down. There's been the personal attacks, just everything. And like I said, I really am sad. I'm really, I want this to be made clear that this is not the Black community. This is people that were drunk on power, that had a little bit of money that wasn't theirs, despite what they try to say, but this was community money, taxpayer money that some people went to their head. But the Black community, Democrat, Republican, white, Black, people on both sides have been victims of this, and people on both sides of the aisle, all colors, and they're really disgusted.
Corey, as a whistleblower, is exactly the kind of whistleblower you want. You know, we get tips all the time from people who say they've got evidence of fraud or waste or corruption or something like that. I mean, she came when I met her at her house in Puyallup with a 3-inch thick binder with hundreds and hundreds of pages of documents that backed up the claims that she was making. And what she had evidence of is rampant self-dealing. That even if you take the racial element out of it, I mean, we can talk about the program itself and any program that's designed to help people based really on skin pigmentation. But when you start to dig deep into how some of these millions of dollars in funds were used, there's simply no excuse for it. A couple of the examples in the story that we talk about, and it's 1%. Let me just say this. What we cover in the story today is probably 1% of all of the wrongdoing or self-dealing that's happening within this program. There is a lot of work still to do, but in order to help people understand it, we really wanted to build a web based on just one of the nonprofits that has a multi-million-dollar contract with the state to carry out this program. It's the Urban League of Metropolitan Seattle. And there are multiple people within the Urban League who awarded themselves money or awarded family members money, got money awarded through the organization. One of them is a woman named Asia Williams that we detail in the story. She, at the end of March of 2025, she closed on a home in Tacoma. And this is enough, I think, to send anyone who's ever had to save and scratch to buy a home into a tailspin. So she closed on a home for $424,000. But thanks to multiple state programs that her as a black woman, that she as a black woman was able to access, the actual amount of her home loan was only $89,000. On a $425,000 home, she's only going to have to pay back $89,000 of it. The rest, gifts, courtesy of you, the taxpayer. She received $99,000 in funds from the Washington State Housing Finance Commission, which administers the new reparations program. She received $100,000 in Community Reinvestment Program funds from United Housing Resources, another $100,000 in Community Reinvestment Program funds through the Urban League of Metropolitan Seattle, and another $50,000 in Community Reinvestment Program funds through an organization in Seattle called Bird Bar Place. So the one of those that I want you to really pay attention to as we talk about self-dealing here is the $100,000 that came from the Urban League of Metropolitan Seattle. Why do I want you to know about that? Well, Asia Williams' mom works at the Urban League of Metropolitan Seattle. She is the director of financial empowerment, a woman named Angela Williams. So in March of 2025, Asia Williams, trying to buy a home, gets $350,000, the bulk of it in taxpayer funds, 6 figures of that, through the organization that her mother is the director of financial empowerment for. And it gets even worse because at this exact time, as we detail in the story, other community members are being turned away. Other community members' applications aren't being approved for help buying a home. Other community members are being told that the funds the Urban League was given by the state have run out, that they ran out at the end of March. There's no more money to give. But of course, Angela Williams' daughter was able to sneak right in there before the funds expired and get $350,000. There's another example, and to me, this is one of the more egregious aspects of the program. There's a woman who works at the Urban League of Metropolitan Seattle. Her name is Ariana Gold. She is a HUD-certified housing counselor. Well, in April of 2025, a woman named Ariana Gold, I'm going to highly doubt that that is a coincidence, received $49,800 from the Urban League of Metropolitan Seattle to pay off consumer debt. What do I mean by consumer debt? Credit card debt. Doesn't matter what the debt is for. Doesn't matter how the debt came to be. Doesn't matter if you racked up credit card debt on lavish vacations or jewelry or whatever it is. Through this program, they will pay off your consumer debt to put you in a better financial position to be able to buy a home in the near future. So here you have a woman who works for the Urban League of Metropolitan Seattle as a HUD-certified housing counselor who gets nearly $50,000 of debt canceled just like that with taxpayer money. And at the same time that this is happening, remember the date there, April of 2025, Just a month earlier, the Urban League of Metropolitan Seattle was telling other community members that they had run out of money to forgive personal debt. So for poor community members who wanted to use this program, who weren't well connected, who didn't work at the Urban League, who didn't know someone at the Urban League, who didn't have a family member at the Urban League, they were being turned away. And at the same time, people well connected within the Urban League were being given money to pay off credit card debt, hundreds of thousands of dollars toward the purchase of a home. And again, these are just a couple of dozens, if not hundreds, of examples that exist of self-dealing within the Community Reinvestment Program. Much of it detailed in the story that we released today. There is no paywall on it, by the way. If you go to our Patreon or Locals pages, you can read that story today, right now, for free. So we, of course, have spent a lot of time in recent weeks reaching out to individuals involved in this for comment. No surprise, the Urban League of Metropolitan Seattle denies any wrongdoing. And by the way, because of our whistleblower, we know that they've known about these allegations for at least 8 months and done nothing about it. The ULMS president and CEO, Michelle Merriweather, sent me an email. It read, in part, ULMS is committed to transparency, accountability, and equity in all our programs, including the Community Reinvestment Program. Sadly, many hardworking individuals, including those affiliated with community-based organizations, continue to face barriers to home ownership due to systemic inequities and high living costs. So their argument is we should be able to use the money. We're Black community members too. We're also suffering with inequities. And I think one of the very obvious things I would point out, let's make an argument that, the daughter of the financial director at Urban League should be able to get money to help purchase a home because she qualifies for it. But why $350,000? Why be able to layer it from multiple organizations using the same program? 3 different organizations, including her mom's organization, gave her money from the same pot to be able to purchase a home. Think of how many people they could have helped purchase a home by dividing that $350,000 up. Because at the same time, they're turning other people away. They're telling other people, we have no money for you. Well, yeah, because you gave a big chunk of the money that you got to the daughter of the director of financial empowerment. Now, I will say, as part of all of this, you guys know that we've had the now Commerce Director, Joe Wynn, on the show many times. Despite him being quite progressive, he and I get along quite well. He used to be one of the more progressive members of the state Senate, and he was a co-sponsor of the bill that created the Community Reinvestment Program. Well, then Bob Ferguson tapped him to be the director of the Department of Commerce. So now one of the state lawmakers who created the program is in the position at the agency that would need to start investigating wrongdoing in the program. And I will tell you, I was pretty surprised by how candid Joe Wynn, the director of commerce, is being about this. We've certainly been in touch with that office over the last several weeks. He told me this: the public deserves accountability and transparency. We appreciate that the whistleblower raised the issue. We are taking action. He also told me on the record that there are certainly some things that are happening that he can't just come out and say. So based on that on the record conversation, I tend to believe that Commerce is in the process of evaluating all of these contracts that come out of this program. Also just received a statement in response to our story from the Washington State Senate Minority Leader, Senator John Braun. He's the ranking Republican in Olympia. He said in a statement, in part, this mess isn't an accident. Corruption thrives wherever government decides certain people get special treatment and others don't. When politicians divide people by race, they create a shadow system with no transparency, no fairness, and no results. The Democratic majority funneled another $50 million to this program last year. People were told to trust this program, that it would have widespread impact on minority home ownership. Instead, the report I saw today indicates it's been treated like a private bank account. When public money is hijacked by self-serving operators, every Washingtonian pays the price. Corruption at any level is morally rotten, but especially if it happens under the nose of the agency that has been entrusted to oversee this program. This is financially destructive to our state and simply cannot continue. So the question is, what happens from here? Now, I'm sure, and there are many other BIPOC nonprofits in the state that are implicated in this. Corey Orvold, our whistleblower, as I said, she's got a binder full of documents that implicate nonprofits far beyond the Urban League of Metropolitan Seattle. We have already started the process of reaching out to some of those nonprofits for comment. There are obviously going to be and is a lot of room to do follow-ups. Frankly, it's enough to keep every single reporter busy in the state for the rest of the year if they have it in them to actually hold programs that deal with race and equity accountable. And that's always a tricky thing. And I think that is, I said on social media last night before we broke the story, it's probably one of the most important investigative reports I've done in my career. And I do believe it will have a lasting impact on state contracts because I believe the Department of Commerce is taking this seriously. We also know and have confirmed that the Office of Attorney General Nick Brown 2 weeks ago reached out to our whistleblower. On October 17th, an investigator with the Attorney General's office, the timing is suspicious, just around the time that we start asking questions about our whistleblower's claims. We know that an investigator with the Attorney General's office spoke at length with our whistleblower about the evidence that she has in this on this program. So now we know Commerce is taking it seriously. We know that the Attorney General's office is interested in looking into this. Where that leads, we don't know. Whether there's actual criminal wrongdoing, we don't know, but the involvement of the Attorney General's office certainly would suggest that there might be something there. But remember, this might be a $250 million program, but it is just one of many programs like this. It is one of many race, social justice, equity programs that was pushed through, rushed through post-George Floyd to appease a certain segment of the community in the name of equity and racial justice. And we know that those have been notoriously under-scrutinized by the government, by auditors, and by the press. Because why? Nobody wants to be called racist. Nobody wants to be called racist. So we can't look into these programs that were awarded to Black people, because if we do that, like we do other programs, then people are going to come after us and accuse us of being racist, which is one of the reasons why I was glad that our whistleblower happens to be half Black. They can accuse me of doing it for racism, but they can't accuse her of doing it for racism. They wouldn't be able to accuse Joe Wynn of doing it for racism. I don't think they'd be able to accuse Nick Brown, who's Black, of doing it for racism. So there's a lot of individuals who are now wrapped up in this, who clearly see some there, who aren't white. And so if you have a situation where the Black Attorney General, where the very progressive Asian Commerce Director who supported this program, where Black community members are now demanding accountability and pursuing accountability, then I think we might have a domino effect. Because if they're willing to do it for this equity program, well, I think that means they'd be willing to do it for other equity programs. Maybe the time has come. Maybe it just takes the dam being breached, one program falling, and now they have to take a closer look at all the other programs that were pushed out post-George Floyd to see if the money is going where the money was meant to go. And I'm going to tell you, probably not. I think back to the Summer of Love and the contract that the city of Seattle gave to a former convicted pimp to be a street czar and connect the community with the police. And he worked for 7 months, took a bunch of that time off because he was sick or something. And then the city quietly ended the contract and nothing came of it. Literally nothing came of it. There are dozens of contracts with a total value over $1 billion that should be scrutinized as part of this. And the report that we put out today with the help of our fearless whistleblower, Corey, is just the beginning. So go check that out on our Patreon and Locals pages.